What's up, guys? I got a brand new video for you today. Today we're looking at some Sony Raw files because a lot of you guys have messaged me asking me how I get my Sony files to look like Fuji. And I don't even know if my Fuji files look like Fuji, but spoiler alert, it's pretty much exactly the same way. About a year ago, I shot a video called XH1 A7 III Outdoor Portrait or something like that, and I didn't make it a comparison video. It wasn't a versus video, it wasn't head-to-head. And it confused a lot of people because they were like, well, how am I supposed to know what camera took what photo? It's kind of like you're trying to choose what team to root for. But basically, that's half the reason why I didn't label what camera took what photo, because it was not a comparison. It was just going out, shooting with two cameras, and coming back with some awesome images, and I wanted to share them with you guys. And if you do look at my Instagram, because I shoot with so many different systems, I shoot with Canon, Sony, and Fuji, mainly Sony lately, but if you look through my Instagram grid, all the images kind of look the same, and that's because of it's my style, the way I edit things. And yeah, I do throw the film simulation on the Fuji files, but I can pretty well match it pretty closely on Sony. So we're gonna go in here and look at some of these files. I might even make some presets down the road for Sony that match Fuji's colors. Anyway, let's take a look at these images here. I've got a couple of different lighting scenarios, so this is kind of like an overcast image. This is the JPEG. This is from the same shoot. We got some at blue hour, so the sun had just set, and this one was at sunset, and this was also part of that XH1 A7 III video. So I'm gonna show you how to edit these, at least how I edit them. There's no right or wrong way to edit an image. Obviously there's gonna be people in the comments that say that's wrong, but this is how I've been doing it, and you know, my clients are happy with the way things turn out, and a lot of you guys like the way things look, so let's get into it. So starting out, we're gonna start out with this image, and it was overcast, so it's super easy to adjust things. The lighting was so soft, but basically this is the JPEG straight out of the A7 III, and like it looks good, but there's a few things I would tweak. I would probably warm it up a little bit. So we're gonna move the adjustment here. Most of my settings happen in Adobe Camera Raw, so there isn't too much going on in Photoshop after, and you'll see that. Sometimes I have to do some adjustment layers, but right now we're just gonna work in Camera Raw. So I'm gonna shift my tint a little. And I generally go down to the blue primary and slide it to the left until I start getting a little bit of that like bluish tone in the shadows. And then the skin tone I always bring back with the red primary. And then I take the saturation down just a little bit. Then I go back in here, and I like to crush my shadows. Some people don't like that, but I like how dramatic it looks. So I'll bring my shadows down a little harder here. And that kind of gives it that classic chrome look, in my opinion. And so after I bring the shadows down, I'll obviously play with my highlights. The highlights are pretty safe here because, again, it was in shade and overcast. So that's already looking pretty good. I would crop this image a bit because I don't know if I love how much negative space is on this side. So I'd probably pull this in a little bit. Something like that. Obviously I could crop the top too, but I'll do that later once I get into Photoshop. So I'm liking how that's looking. I really didn't have to do much. We go to the clarity here, bump it up just a little bit. And sometimes I'll actually adjust the saturation if I think that there's too much saturation. But right now, that looks good. And in my opinion, that looks like a Fuji classic chrome image right there. And then after this, I would go in and do some touch up. There's a bunch of hairs across here that I would clean up. So I'll use the healing brush, just make the brush size really small and just go in and brush the hairs out of there. Sometimes you might have to use the clone tool. But basically this is what I do. And then sometimes if I don't feel like the eyes are sharp enough, I'll just throw a little bit of sharpening on them. And that's basically it. That's literally all you do on an image like that. But again, it matters on the lighting. I'm gonna show you in a few minutes here something that's obviously gonna be a little bit harder to edit. And I think I've shown this before in my Fuji editing videos that I've made before, that I always throw an adjustment layer on. I go to the exposure and I add like 45 to this, and just kind of softens up the shadows and gives it kind of a polished look, in my opinion. Some people might not like that. It kind of takes off the edge, takes off the contrast, but I like how that looks. And I would literally throw that up on Instagram just like that. All right, so since I started out with a super easy image, let's go to something a little bit harder. We're gonna open this one up here. This was during blue hour, so it's the moment right after the sun sets and you get this kind of nice soft, it's almost warm, but also blue light. And so I love how this image looks right out of the camera. This is just straight up raw with nothing on it. A lot of people give Sony a bad rap, but I really don't think the colors are that bad. So what I wanna do is I wanna warm this image up. I wanna make it look more like kind of how it was when I was there, obviously with a few tweaks. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna slide the temperature to be a little bit warmer here, add a little bit more pink into the shot. And because I know that this is the A7 III, I know that there's gonna be information hiding in these highlights, so I'll pull the highlights down a little bit. Just get a little bit more sky there. And like I said, I like to crush the shadows, so we're gonna crush the shadows a little more. It gives it a little bit more of a dramatic image. If you see down here, it starts to kind of darken this area up. And it's kind of like there's more of like a spotlight of light hitting her face. So I'm gonna pull the shadows down a little more. And I'm going to go into my blue primary. And again, I'm gonna pull it over because I kind of like how that looks. Gives that little teal vibe. But it starts to make her skin look super red. So we're gonna go to the red primary and slide it to the right to balance out. Then I'm gonna drop the saturation just a little bit. I'm gonna bump the exposure up just a little bit here. And yeah, I like how that looks. I would probably leave it there. Give or take maybe a little bit more vibrance, but that's looking pretty good right there. I shot this with the Tamron, the 28-75, 2.8. And so that's pretty much it. We'll open this image up and I would do like a little bit of skin touch up. Her skin looks pretty good. It's, you know, just use the healing tool here and just spot out a couple things. Pretty common stuff that you do when you do retouching. I might leave this hair, I kind of like it. There's a bunch of fuzzy stuff on her hat that I can stamp out here. And that is basically it. Again, I'll sharpen up the eyes a bit if I missed or something. I know I was pretty close. But that's pretty good there. And then what I'll do is I'll go to my adjustment layer here and add that exposure filter and add 45. Done. That's basically all I would do to that image. And I would probably say that that looks pretty similar to a classic chrome image right there. And classic chrome's the film simulation I use the most on Fuji because I feel like it just fits my style. That's basically it. That's how I would edit these images. Give or take, maybe I'd make a few more adjustments, but we don't have all day. This video needs to be wrapped up now because I think that that kind of just gives you an idea of what goes through my head when I'm editing my files. Obviously the Fuji system has kind of transformed my style and changed it a bit. And so now I can kind of match any camera to Fuji basically. I don't know, maybe I'll make a preset pack that kind of matches Fuji stuff for any camera system, mainly Sony because I feel like a lot of people shoot with Sony now. But that's it for me. Hopefully you learned something. Maybe you clicked off this video hours ago and you're watching cats playing in boxes. I fits, I sits. That's all I got. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you dislike this video, give it a thumbs down twice. Don't forget to hit that notification bell. Also check out my Instagram. You'll see some more of my work there. And that's all I got. I'll see you guys later.